10x is easier than 2x. 10x is easier than 2x. The topic of today is the book that I recently started reading by Dan Sullivan, Dr. Benjamin Hardy. 10x is easier than 2x. And I'd heard about this book quite a bit from other people, highly recommended by about strategic coach and whatnot, but I just hadn't come across my desk, so to speak, until recently. And so one of the key central things of this book, and I definitely recommend, is how could 10x be easier than 2x when we have to do 10 times more? And if we're already at capacity or close to capacity, how could that even be possible? Well, this concept is, no, it's actually easier. It's actually about doing less. When I'd heard about 10x, it had really been like the Grant Cardone philosophy of what I feel like is, do 10 times more, say yes to 10 times more things, and then that will help the vision grow. So this approach is in the same ballpark, yet a different approach. So it's really about doing less and cutting things away. So this analogy that I have here, because this is how I've been sharing it with people, and this is what's been the visual that's come in my mind, is like when we have a goal, we can look at all these different ways to get to the goal. And the reason why they're different lengths and different areas going different side to side is because what they talk about is, if we're going to look at 10xing our goal, whether that's the income, the time, the money, the goal, whichever, then we can write down a list of all the things that we think it will take to get to that goal. And then when we look at that list, we notice that, a lot of those things are like a 10% gain or a 20% gain if it goes all right, if it goes according to plan. Or maybe it's a big one and it does double, it does get double the results. Then we can see those things, but it's still not the 10x. And then when we look at all those things, what they talk about is that then a very few activities rise up. A very narrow pathway comes up, and that's the 10x pathway. That's the pathway that will actually get to the 10x. And this is just very practical too. It's not like, wishy-washy or wishful thinking, but it's just like, okay, if we're going to get 10 times the sales in this amount of time, what would we have to do? Where would we get the leads, or where would the referrals come from? And this has been the topic of the week in different facets with friends, family, colleagues, partners, which is, if we have this goal in this amount of time, if we are going to 10x that, what would we do? We need maybe say a referral partner, or take the people who already are happy and then maximize the referrals with them. Because if we do say emails here, emails there, like they'll be good and it'll get marginal gains, but it's not going to get that 10x gain. So this has been a very valuable just framework to think about. A lot of people I've been talking with, because then it's not about doing all those things, but it's seeing all these marginal gains. Oh, I could increase this, or just add this, or maybe even do better here. But then it's just like all this stuff gets removed. That's the idea here, is to remove all that stuff from the schedule. Say no, say no, say no, cut it away. Be kind doing that, of course. Yet then it reveals and leaves that narrow pathway of moving forward. So if a business is, trying to grow and, software business, and then it's like, well, if we're going to 10x it, we need a team, and we need the money to pay everybody. So maybe raising money is the 10x route. And otherwise, because then you get the funds, you get the team, and then boom, you actually can create the platform to, have 10x the customers, rather than a little marginal increase here, a little bit here, bit by bit by bit. So that's been the topic of this week. And that's where, for you, with your goal that you have in mind, that's what I encourage you and invite you to do, is to take a look through this lens, this framework. It's almost like putting glasses on. Say, like, okay, I got the 10x glasses on. And what would the 10x goal be to get, 10x the sales in the same amount of time? And then if that was the case, what are all the ideas that come up to get there? And then chop, because there's only going to be a narrow pathway that'll actually practically get you within shooting range of that 10x. And that's what we'll get into the flow state experience here, is release any of the fog that prevents us from seeing that pathway, and then any of the resistance that keeps us from walking that very narrow path, and actually having the discipline to do less by not doing all those other marginal things and not getting wrapped up in those marginal things, yet being laser focused on that 10x path. Then we have the to-do list here. So then we can take a look at all these items on our to-do list that's distracting from the 10x path and pulling us away from the 10x path. And the emphasis they make here is that if you don't reach the 10x, it's not about blaming or shaming yourself or feeling like a failure. That's not the point at all. The point is prioritization with this way of seeing. And it's to actually have more peace in our lives rather than feeling stressed and, oh, I accomplished something, now I got a 10x and do another thing. It's not that. It's a reverse way of finding what are the handful of things that actually matter to do, and then just letting go of the rest. And then you have the time to enjoy, time to be at peace, time to have calm. So that wraps it all up. 10x is easier than 2x.